The Terminator 2 is a tank that it is designed to protect other tanks, especially in urban areas. It's built from refurbished hulls from the venerable T-72 main battle tank. But instead of mounting a big 125mm cannon, the BMP T-72 is armed a remarkably diverse suite of weapons that includes 230mm cannon, 4 Attica T anti-tank missiles and a heavy machine gun. This gives the Terminator 2 the capability to engage infantry and light armored vehicles with its cannon, and tanks and buildings with its guided anti-tank missiles. The first version of the Terminator was designed in the late 1990s. It was a 5-man vehicle based on the chassis of the T-90 tank, according to Russian media. It was armed with 2 hull-mounted 30mm automatic grenade launchers in addition to the other weapons, notes Janes 360. The Terminator 2, first unveiled in 2013, subtracted the grenade launchers and reduced the crew size to 3. The concept of the tank support combat vehicle arose after Russian experiences in Afghanistan and Chechnya, where numerous Russian tanks fell victim to insurgents armed with anti-tank rockets and missiles. The most notorious incident occurred in the Chechen capital of Grozny on New Year's Eve, 1994, when large columns of Russian tanks and armored personnel carriers were ambushed and wiped out in the city streets by Chechen fighters armed with anti-tank rockets. That terrible night alone may have cost the Russians as many as 400 armored vehicles and 1,000 dead. Russia's initial response was to escort its tanks with Su-23-4 Shilka self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, which could rapidly pump out cannon fire to suppress hostile anti-tank teams. However, the Su-23-4 was lightly armored and not equipped to detect ground targets. Hence the BMP-T was designed as a versatile and mobile weapon for protecting tanks, explained Sputnik News. According to the initial conception, vehicles of this type should be used alongside tanks on the battlefield and destroy any potentially dangerous target. While the BMP-T would seem to be an impressive vehicle, the Russian military doesn't seem to think so. The Russian army never ordered the first version because the 5-man crew was too large, the Attica missile launchers were unprotected from enemy fire and the fire control system was lacking. But the main disadvantage of the first Terminator was its high cost, since using the T-90's chassis for an armored fighting vehicle of this type turned out to be prohibitively expensive, Russia beyond the headlines notes. Are prospects any better for the Terminator 2? This remains to be seen. While Russian media typically extols the virtues of Russian weapons, praise for the BMP T-72 is curiously guarded. RBTH cited a Russian military analyst who noted that while the Terminator 2 is easier to operate, lighter, and cheaper than the original, it also has significantly less firepower. It can fire at only 1 target at a time, while the first Terminator could take down 3 targets. Conceptually, the Terminator 2 has merits. Much like the Israelis converting their older Merkava tanks into heavily armored troop carriers, a Russian support vehicle heavily armed with missiles and small-caliber cannon might be useful in engaging infantry while the main battle tanks like the T-90 go after big targets like enemy tanks. On the other hand, it's a tank that it isn't a tank, which means using it will add more tactical complication on the battlefield. Russian media reports that a single BMP T-72 has been sent to Syria for testing. It was shown to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad last week when he visited the Russian base at Hamimim.